Did you end up owing more on your taxes this year than you expected, even though you work a W-2 job and had withholding done on your wages, which you believe should have covered any tax you had due? If so, this video is for you. I'll explain the issue that happens with withholding and some solutions that you can implement to make sure that that doesn't happen again. My name is Merrill Taylor. I'm a CPA. I've been working on taxes for over 20 years and helping clients save sometimes tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions on taxes through proactive tax planning. So let's talk about this issue that comes up. This actually comes up quite a bit with clients that I see, unfortunately, and you might be one of my clients that I've directed you to come and watch this video to help explain the issue. So basically what the issue is the withholding tables don't work when you have multiple W-2s or multiple people in a home earning income through a W-2. Because as what happens is the tax brackets are graduated, right? They start at 10% and they work their way to 37% based on the amount of income that you are earning. The problem with the withholding tables is they assume only one person is working. And so when the withholding starts out, it starts out with 10%, and then when the income gets high enough, it goes to 12%, and then up to 22%, and then all the way up to 37%. The problem is that when you have two people working, you now are hitting the higher tax brackets faster than you would have if you were the only one working or if you only had one W-2. So as an example, the 12% bracket phases out, let's say, around $90,000 of income. Well, if the first spouse is making, say, $100,000 of income on their W-2, they are already in the 22% tax bracket. But the employer recognizes pretty much all of that income is within the 12% bracket, so only about 12% of taxes are withheld on that income. The next spouse then comes along. Let's say that spouse also earns $100,000 of income. Well, the tax brackets look at it and say, well, hey, that's great. You are making $100,000 of income. It assumes that W-2 is the only source of income and also withholds about 12%. The problem is when you put W-2 number 1 together with W-2 number 2, you are now in the 22% bracket. That second W-2, the second $100,000 of income, is subject to 22% tax rather than 12% tax. 22% tax is 10% higher than 22, so that second W-2 technically owes an additional $10,000 of tax on that income that has now not been withheld. Now, some people will say, well, that's great, we'll just file separate and solve the problem. It doesn't work that way because when you file separate, all the tax brackets now get cut in half. The withholding tables assumed you were filing joint, so they withheld the 12% up to the 12% bracket for a married filing joint person, which is about $90,000. If the withholding tables were using the single filer, then it would have withheld 12% up to only 45. So that could be one way to solve the issue, is that instead of reporting as married on your withholding, you would report as single. Another way to help increase withholdings is to report 0 exemptions so that the most tax is withheld. So that's one solution that we come up with clients is say, okay, instead of filing married, or instead of putting married and putting exemptions on there, just say that you're single and put no exemptions and more tax will be withheld. So that is the issue that we're dealing with and why people owe tax when they have multiple W-2s. And one way to solve it. There is a couple of other ways. If you were to Google IRS withholding calculator, there is an entire IRS site that you can go and put in your income and work through that, and that will tell you what to put on your W-4s with your employers and if you need additional tax withholding. Another way to do it is to take now that you know how much tax you owe, if your income and withholdings are going to be about the same for the coming year, you can take the tax that you owe and just make estimated payments. Rather than changing your estimate or changing your withholding with your employer, you can just make estimated tax payments to the IRS and a state if you need to make state estimated payments. Usually withholding for the states is not off because states usually have like a flat tax, or their tax rates aren't as big of a difference as the federal tax rates. The federals go from like 10 to 37%, so there's a huge range in there, whereas states usually don't have that much variation in their tax. So we usually don't see a big issue on the state taxes. It's usually just a federal type thing. So you could just make estimated tax payments to the IRS. Another way to do it is if you look at your tax return, there is a line on there, and I won't say the specific line because it changes year to year, but there is a line on the tax return that says total tax. It's usually, currently it's on page 2 of the tax return. It says total tax. If you were to take that total tax number and divide it by the number that's on the taxable income line. So you're going to look at 2 lines, total tax and taxable income. If you take the total tax and divide it by the number on the taxable income line, that will give you your effective tax rate. You can then look at your W-2. You're going to look at box 1 and box 2 of your W-2. Box 1 is your federal taxable wages. Box 2 is your federal withholding. If you take box 2 and divide it by box 1, that will give you your effective tax rate of withholding. So let's say that your total tax on your tax return is $100,000. Or reverse it. Let's say that's $25,000. You have $25,000 as your total tax. And let's say your taxable income is $100,000. That would give you a 25% effective tax rate. So let's say that you look at your W-2, let's say that's also $100,000 just for ease of it. Box 1 is $100,000. And your withholding is, let's say it's $15,000. Well, that gives you a 15% withholding rate, and you would be off by about $10,000 because you owed $25,000 and the W-2 was off by that. So in that scenario, you would increase your withholding on your W-2 by an extra $10,000 or by that, to get it up to that 25%. So that's another fix. You could go to your employer and say, hey, I need an extra $10,000 withheld from my paycheck during the year. And then you would divide that $10,000 by the number of paychecks remaining. Let's say there's 15 paychecks remaining for the year. So take 10,000 divided by 15, and then that would be the number that you would add to your federal withholding through the rest of the year. So that is the problem of how people end up owing way more money on their returns than they expected, and some solutions and ways to resolve it. If you would like continued tax updates, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And also, if you go to taxtutor.com, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter.